I'm about to sit down with Lisa Alexander, who's the head coach of the netball world champions, the Australian Diamonds. Lisa's going to talk to us about her journey from being an athlete into a PE teacher and then the process on becoming the Australian head coach of the netball side. She's going to talk about the insights about her experiences in winning the World Championships in 2015, and I'm really looking forward to getting into this interview today with Lisa Alexander.
Well, yeah, reflecting on Bill Sweetnam and how influential he was when I first went for the position, because I'd been through what we call the performance coach leadership model, which was, we did a lot of testing out whether we had the elite disposition of being, a top-level national coach, and AIS did a lot of testing on that. So I did psychological profiling, and we did a day's testing in an office, which coaches don't often have to do, but it still puts you under pressure about deadlines and the practices that you have to have in a complex organisation. Yeah. And that was fantastic, that experience. And what they did is they observed you. So they had cameras, they had actors and actors coming in and acting a role where I had to do a difficult conversation, I had to do a report I had to give feedback to one of my reports and all of these sorts of things. My job was, I was Kelly Myers, which was the COO of some robotics firm, and then I had to do a presentation as well to the board about moving forward. And that whole day, that creative experience was just amazing. And I got huge amount of feedback about that day, which gave me great confidence that I could have a crack at the national job. The psychological testing was interesting, but it definitely came out that I had the disposition to be an elite coach. I just had lots of derailers, which coaches have to be aware of, and if you're aware of them, then you can do something about them. Yeah. So one of mine was just that emotional reaction to things, and so just getting...
Most of us, isn't it?
Well, it's a part of you being an elite coach, is you've got to, you've got to be fair. I always say, I like to use Australian language around it. It's fair income. Yeah. And I am fair income, and I am engaged in the coaching process, and I'm, right behind the players when they're out there on the court, and if they get hit, I feel like, going up and remonstrating, but I can't do that. I've got to be controlled and I've got to steer the ship. So that was the great thing about Bill Sweetnam is, he was also my mentor at the time. So instead of one particular area that I had to work on, I decided I'd have somebody who would give me the confidence to have a crack at the job. Yeah. And he did. So he's just such a positive person. Like he's all about positivity. Like he says to me, don't watch stuff about you that's negative, because at the end of the day, you're your own worst critic anyway. If you're fair income as a coach, you'll know the areas you need to work on. Yeah. So he said, spend more of your time going through and having your success profile up, just like the athletes do. So the success profile is your 10 best performances, and that you should be replacing those at least the 2 bottom ones every 6 months. Yeah. So, and that's what true high performance is. Yeah. And I think that's what Bill also helped me with, was his absolute passion for high performance and navigating the politics of sport too. He really helped me with that, because he's been done over by lots of different people. Yeah. So he sort of helped me to be a bit wiser about how to deal with that, and gave me really good advice. So I can't thank him enough.
So in that process of going for the Australian netball coaching job, were there psychologists on that panel that were like...
It's a good question. No, there weren't, but what they did have is they'd consulted with the AIS and their coaching centre, and they have a person there who's still there now, Darlene Harrison, who's done a lot of study of the literature of the successful coaches in the world, across not just Australia but the whole world, and what are the key attributes that they have. And so a lot of that was brought into the application process. So you had to address elite disposition and building partnerships and knowing the business of sport and all of that. And when I applied for the national coach job, we didn't have a high performance manager at the same time. So it was sort of like a combined job, but as I knew, you wouldn't be able to do both because there's too much of a conflict You know, you'd be answering to yourself, and really that's what you can't have. So it's certainly, from netball's point of view, they certainly took the psychological testing seriously. It was done by an American organisation called DDI. So we had to do, took I think 30 minutes, and I ended up rushing it and doing it in, because you're not meant to take a lot of time, it's meant to be instinct when you answer. But boy, it was annoying, because I was teaching and it was at lunchtime and I had kids wanting to see me, and and I'm trying to finish this psychometric testing, and I was getting quite pissed off with it. So
So you're a PE teacher while you were applying for this national...
Yeah, I had a full-time job. I was mainly maths, but also PE. I went from year 5 PE on a Friday afternoon, period 5 after lunch, to year 12 further maths, period 6 on a Friday. And that was always an interesting class, and I figured if I can do that, I can do anything, keep them entertained. They're a great group of kids, though, that year, and when I got the job, they would put streamers in the room for me, and they were just really thrilled. But I kept working at school. Wesley were terrific to me, because they allowed me to combine my coaching, which was part-time at that time. I helped with the Adelaide Thunderbirds, but I also coached the school year 7 team, and then also taught my classes. And I had, it was a big responsibility.
So what was your journey leading up to that in regards to coaching? And I heard you talk earlier today about being an athlete, and that was definitely a huge part of the process. But what led you to apply, feeling confident enough within yourself to apply for that national coaching job?
Well, I think I had, as I said, that last little bit of a push came from those two things, having Bill Sweetnam as a mentor, plus my partner Malcolm, who's a great supporter of me and really believes in me, and he's also been a principal at school, so he understands the sort of processes you need to go through to go for those really high profile jobs, so he was a great support. And then also that day I went through, the testing day, gave me the sort of objective feedback about me, and look, you are pretty good at what you do, so why don't you have a crack at it? But it's been built on 25 years of high performance coaching. I'm an experienced coach, and so the opportunity just came up. And the other thing was I had to break through that glass ceiling in netball, which was, if you haven't been an Australian player, then you shouldn't be coaching the Australian team. And so I had to bust through that glass ceiling as well, which is that's a tough one, because it's built on a history and tradition in the sport, and often the ex-Australian players are the harshest critics of the current team. So I had to wear that for a while. I had to wear the old shield on the back. But I always believed in what I was doing. I believed that I was good enough to do it. It was a matter of me just learning how to do the job in the way that was authentic to me. And I've always been very clear about the fact that I haven't played for Australia, and that's a great regret of mine at the end of the day, and probably drives me to be a better coach. But at the same time, I revere and really look up to the ex-Australian players of the past, and I try and help them to come into the current team as much as I possibly can. So we have visits from past players, and we try and include them in lots of things so that they feel a part of the bigger family of the Australian team.
And so what was your player background?
I played for Victoria. To get in the Victorian team was actually nearly as hard as getting in the Australian team. It's a very, very tough environment. Gillian Lee, who is here as the NTIS coach, was also in that team with me. So just to get in the team was enough, and we trained very hard in those days. I mean, if the girls did the training that we did in those days, they'd probably break now. And we don't want them to break either, but we did train a lot. And it was very heavy sessions, and we were very fit. But that was great. I enjoyed it very much. I combined that with my teaching. So I was teaching, I think the first couple of years, I was also teaching for my first 2 years of phys ed teaching at Seaford Carrum High School in Melbourne. So the teaching, I was, new teacher, playing elite netball. I also was married. I had a baby. She was the 3-year-old by then. So And she used to think Mummy lived near the zoo because the netball centre in Melbourne is right near our zoo. So, yeah, I don't know how I did it sometimes, but that's where I started as an elite player. And then when we moved to the country in 1989, I got a job at Leongatha High School as a PE teacher, and it was just expected that I'd start coaching because you're the PE teacher in a country town, plus you're an elite level player, so you better coach.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's when I started. And I actually went for the schoolgirls team the first year. So I came up to Darwin actually for my first tournament of coaching. Yeah. So I've got a really good connection with Darwin. It's been won a national title here in '86, which is what we're celebrating, 30 years, yes. And also, having that first coaching experience at what I call high performance level, because if it's a state team of anything, that's where we're looking at. And I worked my way through my coaching qualifications at the same time. And I started educating coaches at the same time because I was a teacher. I had the skills to do that side of it as well. And it was something that was always a part of what I did. And I know Gillian here at the NTIS is very passionate about it as well. I mean, she started her coaching business and writing books back in those days. So.
Yeah. And that's what you drive the Australian athletes to do now that are in the Australian squad.
Yeah, I do. I love the fact that now one of our just recently retired players, Beck Bully, got her coaching qualifications while she was an Australian player and is now coaching in the State League in New South Wales. So I'm really, really proud of her to do that. Yeah. And also just had a baby as well. So she's doing all the combined jobs that get done, and she's got a very supportive partner. He's a teacher as well. And it's great that she's giving back to the sport that way. And apparently she's doing a magnificent job there. So it's great.
It's funny, there's a bit of a theme there, I think, with the teaching. Everyone being teachers.
Yeah, there's a lot of teachers. Maddie Robinson's a teacher as well, primary school teacher, and it's funny, her husband Todd is going back. Yeah. So, there's quite a few of us in that crew, and we've got Kim Green, who's recently retired from international, still playing with the Swifts. She's actually studying to be an athlete wellbeing counsellor, so she's going to work in that area. So it's fantastic that the girls are really giving back to the sport and seeing the importance of that.
Yeah, so how many players would there be in the Australian squad that goes away and competes?
Oh, look, we have, at the moment we've got 22 in the squad, but we took 14 to England. Yeah. So 8 of those stayed at home and they were doing their own, at the time they were doing the pre-season with their clubs, so a few of them stayed back. But in general, we choose a squad of about 18, and that's a very elite squad. It's really hard to get into. So we've got to make some decisions at the end of this season about that squad size, and that's going to be tough to put just 18 players into that. But those 18 will be high quality athletes, and they'll be hopefully competing in at least one of the international series coming up in the latter part of the year.
And I've heard you say that a lot of them have done their coaching qualification. What's the numbers on that?
Oh, look, I'd say at the moment probably, half, but that's not good enough. I'd like all of them have to do, or they get given prior learning for their foundation courses because of their ability as an Australian player. But at the end of the day, I want them learning about coaching, which is very different to playing, and I think it's a real advantage for us that they do that. And it's part of their responsibilities in any case. They're taking clinics and things all the time with kids, and many of them are running their own clinic businesses, so I definitely want them having their qualifications to do that.
Yeah. So what are the stats around the 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 11 in regards to 9 out of 10 have gone on to become coaches or something?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah. Oh, that was our Victorian team. Team. Sorry, that was 30 years ago.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Norma Plummer was our coach, and of course I took over from Norma as the Australian coach, so and I've been coached by her, so obviously I look up to her so much. And as a coach, she was very tough, a hard taskmaster, but you just knew you were ready for anything. She always prepared teams extremely well, very intense, and she gave me an opportunity as an athlete, so I'll never forget that. She gave me my opportunity, and at the end of the day, you've got to take it and take it on, so I really enjoyed that. And then I worked alongside her as Australian 21s coach. She was also the Australian coach at the time, so worked with her as a coaching colleague. And then obviously now she's one of our greats in our sport and just been a Hall of Famer. So for her to coach that Victorian team, and it was the first time we'd won for a while, Victoria, and she really set us to be the fittest we could possibly be, because she knew it was the first time for finals, plus it was in Darwin, so it was going to be warmer for everybody. So we had to put on our wet weather gear and train in that in Melbourne and make sure we were sweating all the time and doing our Indian file before every training session. I think all of us can remember that. 15 minutes before every single session, and then you'd train for 3 hours, and you would train for 3 hours. It's, the girls today, we often tell them about that. I think they think we're lying, but we weren't. And we would train with Victoria for, I think it was 2 sessions a week, plus we'd play twice a week in our state league competition. We had an indoor and an outdoor competition, and you had to play outdoor because that qualified you to play for Victoria. And then we'd have our club side training as well. So it was at least 5 times a week you're out on the court training, let alone doing any fitness work on top of that. So it was a big load, and lots of travel as well, because I lived quite away from netball training headquarters. So I'd get in my little Volksy VW and off I'd go, and I think I was listening to Brian Adams at the time and Johnny Farnham. Yeah. I'm showing my age.
Isn't it funny how, when obviously there's a lot that goes on in the behind the scenes of high-performing teams, but isn't it funny how you often hear on the exterior an interview with a player or a coach, and they say, we were just the fittest that we'd ever been, and the deciding factor in succeeding and being number 1 or being number 2 is just that the players and the coaches believe that they were just the fittest that they'd ever been.
I think, as a phys editor, I have a bit of a bent towards the physical side, but as I have learnt about coaching, I've understood the psychological side and how important that is. And I actually brought that in a lot in my junior, when I was coaching the 17 unders and 19s at Victoria, because I felt as an athlete that was an area I'd missed out on. If I'd known a little bit more about sports psychology at the time, I think I could have better prepared for trials that we had in 1987, and I might have got through, I don't know. I certainly would have probably spent a bit more time working on my fundamental skills as well. Yeah. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. It might have made a difference, but it may not have. But I certainly knew as a coach that I didn't want young athletes to miss out on being really well prepared, not just physically, but mentally for the game. So I brought a guy in called Anthony Stewart, who used to work with David Parkin. Oh, yeah. And I brought him in for a couple of sessions, and he was, a really well regarded psychologist at the time, but he had some really practical activities that you could do. And I used to do those activities with the teams, and I think it really helped them to be the best that they could be, and it certainly helped us to have a winning mentality. The teams I coached in those years all won. I was lucky. I had, great players, Eloise Southby, Susan Meaney. I think I had one of the defenders, Narelle Garbutt. All of those players went on to be National League players with Melbourne Kestrels and the Phoenix. And they were a joy to coach at that age, as they are. And I think I helped them along that road in the psychological and physical preparation. Physical preparation was just a non-negotiable, and it is a part of being mentally tough as well. You learn to push your body to the limits, and that's what high performance is all about. It's about learning how you can push yourself further, but also understanding that you've got to do that smartly and with really good experts around to tell you when you need to stop too, because we can become obsessed as high performance athletes, which I learnt too. I was addicted to running even my later years after I finished playing netball, I just kept running, and it became really difficult for me personally when I had to stop. I had Achilles issues, and it was like a death in the family almost when I couldn't run anymore. So I understand that real obsession that athletes have, and how careful we have to be with them, and also as coaches how we have to help them to, or support them to move on to the next phases of their life.
Yeah. So what are some of the most basic psychological sort of tips and strategies that somebody could use, like at under 13 level or under 15 level? Or
what I tell all of my athletes to do, and I give them one every time they come into the Diamonds, is a journal. I buy them all nice journals that are very high quality because it's so important. And actually Shani Layton's asked me not to buy anymore because she's got a few. She said, it's not because I'm not using it, Lisa, it's just that I'm, she's trying to be environmentally conscious. So I've decided that I'm not going to buy everyone a new one each time, but I'll buy the new staff, the new staff or the new players a new one each time. But I expect them to use their journals for their reflection on themselves and as athletes. They can use it for whatever they like. A lot of them use it for performance analysis. Some of them use it to record their journey. So, for example, Laura Geitz, the first time she was captain, she used her journal to write a daily diary in, because when I gave them out at the start and I put the idea to them, Kath Cox said to me, look, this is the first time I've done this, Lisa, and I should have done it years ago because I could have recorded all of that great history and stories from when I was first an Australian player, and I'd have it ready for my book.
Yeah, exactly.
And I said, perfect.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I don't really mind what they use it for as long as they've got that ability to write and reflect.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important part of the learning process for everybody. And it enables them to dump a lot of their crap or their baggage on the paper and analyse themselves first. It doesn't mean they don't go and see a psychologist if they need to, but it's a great practice, I think, for everyone to get into. And I, encourage the juniors here at the NTIS. The other day I spoke to them about having, writing down a couple of things and reviewing the session that we did and putting those learnings out there. Because if they write it, then at least there's a little bit more of a commitment to, well, it's on the paper, it's staring right in front of me, maybe I need to do that next time.
Yeah. And apparently, and I believe this as well, one of the best things to do is just listing 3, 5 or 10 things you're grateful for that day on a journal. And there's actually some scientific research around now about how valuable that is for health and building relationships with significant others and teammates. And
I follow a similar process, although I've done a lot of reading and research myself in the area, but I've followed the Stephen Covey model for a long time, which is around the 7 habits of highly effective people, and I've found it to be the best system for me to be as organised as possible, but also to understand my priorities. My priorities are, number 1, my family, and then number 2, my job after that. So it's, critically important that we get those priorities right. And so that's why I'm such a big one for, as a coach, acknowledging that athletes have families, they have an off-court life, so their well-being is extremely important to their ability to be a high-performance athlete. So I've, encouraged that since I first got into the national job, and it's something that I take very seriously.
And moving from psychology of the individual and the family and into the psychology of the team, which is a whole another kettle of fish. I know you've done some work with Ray McLean from Leading Teams, and I was lucky enough to work with someone who was working for them with a local rugby union side. They came up and they did some Leading Team stuff, and it was really fascinating, the stuff that they did. What did you do with Ray McLean?
Psychology of team, I guess I've done it for a long time just without knowing it. I think probably, from watching the Norma Plumbers or even my coach Robin English, who I had at a club level, you see them in action, how they deliver the messages to the whole team. So that's a part of you looking after the psychology of the team. And Bill Sweetnam's actually always said this to me. He doesn't necessarily, he's one for not having a team psychologist. The jury's out for me. At the end of the day, I need the right person to do that job. But as he said to me, as the head coach, you are always responsible for the psychology of the team. And I really believe that, and you do set that tone and what the team needs to do. So part of what I do, which is embedded a little bit in the work we do with Ray, is that I need to sell a message and a vision for the team. So part of it is being the world's best high performance program.
Yep.
And that's a very wonderful thing for us all to aim for, and we're not there yet. Or that idea of Mount Everest, which we did get from Ray.
Yep.
So they're the sorts of creative things that we can look at together that sort of give everyone an immediate emotional visual connection, usually visual because that's what everyone likes to see. They connect with that idea, and then we can start to roll out that theme and be quite creative around it. So I'll also have a theme for every campaign so that the players have a sheet, and I give them out one at every campaign. This is what this campaign's all about, the key messages we're trying to get across, so that I can kind of control the messages that go out to the media and also remind the players about their role as Australian players. That is, don't get ahead of yourselves, stay humble, understand that we're only as good as the work we put in and the last win on the board, and all of those things that you need to do to keep people focused on the job at hand. Yep. So the we before me. So a lot of those key ideas that we've got from Ray, I just weave that into all of my coaching chats when I'm talking to the whole group or the whole staff.
Yep. It's been fascinating to get some of your insights, and we'll start to wrap it up because I know you're a busy person.
I know you'd love to talk for an hour, and so would I.
And I just want to acknowledge you and congratulate you on becoming the World Netball Champions.
Thank you.
For 2015, you guys beat New Zealand in the final.
It's a little bit, actually, it's still hard to, like even just think, I am a world champion. I would have never have dreamt of that. I did dream of that as a young girl, probably more in the swimming side of things, but to actually say it as a coach is enormously, I'm humbled by it. So thank you for reminding me about it.
Yeah, no worries. And just as we wrap up, what sort of your greatest insights in regards to what stands out for you in that, whether it's the journey, in the process or the event or something afterwards, what really stands out in that?
Oh, hard one. I think it's that moment when the mission's been accomplished. It's only just a very slight moment of time, and you get a very single little slice of it when you can just sit there and go, the job's done.
Yeah. And
it's enormously satisfying when that happens, but you also understand that it can be easily the other side as well as a coach, so because I've been on both sides of it. So just having that just slight amount of time to reflect is it's lovely, and also sharing it with your family. I think there's a photo of me I've got the World Cup just slightly above the barrier, and my daughter, and everyone's moved across, and my daughter's taken the photo of me, and just what she said in the photo it's still emotional. You can see me tearing up now, but her getting that photo just between the two of us was very special.
That's awesome, and it's great insight. I'd like to finish off with a few questions, which I haven't prepped you on.
Yes.
And these usually just come to me as we're talking. If you could go back to any point in history or forward to any, probably can guess possibly one of them, but one of the questions I always ask is if you can go back to any point in history at any time, before you were born or before the human race, whatever, to forward to any time in history, where would you go, what time?
Oh, wow, that's really fascinating. I think the late 18th century because I'm a bit of a sciencey person, I think, just when all the discoveries were coming and women were starting to become really, I guess, respected for their ability in science. I would have liked to have been one of the, the Marie Curie or, just being part of those groups of scientists really getting those breakthroughs. Yep.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed this interview with Lisa Alexander as much as I did sitting down and chatting with her. If you did, please hit the like button, share it with your friends, and hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all of my videos. If you'd like more information, head on over to jakebondre.com and sign up for email updates. And for access to Lisa on all social media, search for @CoachLisaA or @CoachLisaAlexander.